Archive is a film I watched out of curiosity. I'm not the biggest sci-fi film fan in the world, but I do like it if a film is done well because I think it gives us a lot of food for thought. That's certainly the case with Archive. This was released in 2020. It is now available to purchase online for streaming, and this is set in 2038, which actually isn't as far away as it sounds. And it's written and directed by Gavin Rothery and stars Theo James and Stacy Martin. And I'll read the description from IMDb, which I think gives a nice summary without spoiling anything. So, 2038. George Almore is working on a true human equivalent AI. His latest prototype is almost ready. This sensitive phase is also the riskiest, especially as he has a goal that must be hidden at all costs, being reunited with his dead wife. Wow, well, if that doesn't affect you, nothing will. That's obviously a very important goal, and straight away it asks the question, should we be utilising technology to bring back in one way or another people who are no longer with us? The film addresses that question given the nature of the narrative, but it's not really the focus here. The focus is about him trying to achieve his goal. And one thing that I liked, and it was very apparent very quickly, is that we get to see the stages of this creation. We see the first version of this robot, or AI, I beg your pardon, and the second, and then he's currently working on one that it still looks robotic, but it looks a lot more human than the other ones, which look like they could have been made out of cereal boxes and painted silver. And this AI, as soon as we meet them, you can tell they have a human quality of emotion. And they think and they feel, and although they're not human immediately, and you can see that there's nothing really human about them in any real sense, they are very human equivalent. And obviously as the film progresses, this AI begins to develop more and more, but we don't know. Certainly I couldn't tell what direction this was taken. And unpredictable, I think, is the word I'm looking for. It's unpredictable. When I first started watching this, I hadn't read the description on IMDb. I'd read a few articles about it, but I'd kind of tried to avoid anything spoilery. And I didn't know where it was going. So in terms of the narrative, for the most part, it's really good. I think the pacing's a little off. There were some times when I was just, my mind was wandering. I thought this isn't going anywhere. But those moments were few and far between, I have to be honest. The narrative is good, the pacing's not great. I didn't really like the bits when George, played by Theo James, was away from the robots. There are moments where he's obviously talking to other people and doing other things. And I found those, although most of those moments were important for the narrative, I didn't think they were that exciting, and I just wanted him to get back to the robots and converse with the robots. I apologise if you can hear my laptop having a meltdown. Not all technology is effective. There is a quote in this, and I'll tell you the quote because it doesn't spoil anything, and it just really, really hit me hard. So basically, something happens to one of the robots, nothing dramatic or anything, but George says, "I didn't see any damage." And the robot, I believe it was J2, said, "That doesn't mean I'm not okay." And then George replies, "Well, why don't you come and talk to me when you're a little less dramatic?" I might be paraphrasing, but that's the essential. And I just think that perfectly sums up humanity's, or a lot of humanity's attitudes towards mental health. And it makes me think maybe robots are more humane than a lot of people. But that's not the point of the film, that's not what it's getting at, but certainly I perceived that at several points throughout. It is a really good film. It's not, as I said, the narrative's not perfect with its execution, but when it's good, it's really good. The character of the robot, J2 and J3, really, really great, visually really compelling. Stacy Martin gave a fantastic performance in what I can only imagine would be a very peculiar role to get your mindset in the right place for. Some great set designs. I really liked it. There wasn't anything about it that was particularly awful. Not the best film I've ever seen, But as I said, I'm not the biggest fan of sci-fi, so when I do like a sci-fi film, it suggests to me that it's done at least something right. So, Archive was better than I expected, not perfect, but one I would definitely recommend.